You wake before the stars have fully risen, though the day has long since gone to sleep. Outside the shutters, the fields are quiet, the last coals of sunset snuffed beneath the thickening mist. Inside the cottage, the air is close with the soft, sour warmth of the hearth's memory. You sit upright on the edge of your wooden bed, blanket tangled around your waist. The shape of your body still pressed into the flattened, wool-stuffed mattress behind you. Your spine aches, but it is a familiar ache, one that tells you the day has ended and the long night is beginning. This is not sleep as you know it in some distant, fast world of clocks and pillows and silent houses. This is sleep as it once was, drowsy, layered, watchful. You do not lie down flat. That would be tempting death. The old women say the devil can press into your chest if you lie fully back in any way. But you've seen enough coughs turn into graves to know that breathing is better done half-sitting. So you prop yourself up with a bundle of linens and a tired elbow, head tilted as though always listening. The room is hushed, but not silent. The fire mutters in the corner, throwing shadows up the rough stone wall. A mouse scratches somewhere in the thatch, and your mother, curled in her corner behind the faded curtain, lets out a breath that sounds more like a prayer. Your feet are bare, the soles roughened by soil and soot, and when they brush against the cold earth-packed floor, they flinch like creatures startled awake. You draw them back beneath the hem of your sleeping shift, thick and coarsely woven, scratchy but comforting in its heaviness. Tonight, like most nights, you will drift, not plunge, into sleep. It comes in pieces, like bread broken with someone you half remember. There's the first sleep, the dead sleep they call it, though it is not truly so deep. It's just long enough for dreams to rise. And then, like a tide pulling back before its return, your eyes flutter open. It will be dark still, the moon perhaps slid behind cloud or roof beam, and for an hour or two, you will simply be awake. Not restless, not alert, just still. Sometimes this interval is for prayers. The watch, some say, is a holy hour God, is more likely to listen then, when the world lies between breaths. Sometimes you murmur half-remembered psalms, tracing invisible crosses over your chest. Sometimes you just listen. To the tick of the wind against the shutters, to the cluck of the hens settling outside, to the slow settling of your own bones. You might rise, you might not. If you do, your movements are small and quiet, perhaps a cup of water. Perhaps to check that the embers have not died too much, for the fire is a fickle friend in these months of frost. You kneel before the hearth, coaxing a curl of smoke from the buried coals, feeding them slivers of twig and whispered breath until they blush again. The faint light strokes the worn faces of the room, your father's boots by the door, your sister's comb on the ledge, the draped cloth that hides the night soil bucket. Every object is softened in this hour, like everything has agreed to pause. And you, half-sitting, not quite sleeping, not quite waking, feel a slowness settle in your limbs. You remember the bread that had too little yeast, the neighbor who lost her pig, the boy in the next village with the red sores. But even those thoughts grow heavy and the world draws you back down. You do not sleep lying flat because death lies flat. The grave lies flat. The saintly dead are painted on church walls lying flat, hands folded, stiff in eternal stillness. You are not ready for that. None of you are. So you prop yourself up, as generations have done, bundled with cloaks and bolsters, heads slumped forward or tilted back at angles that would seem cruel to those who have never slept with both eyes half open, for fear of rats or spirits or breath gone still. There is comfort in it, in the uprightness. It reminds you of waking, of readiness, of not fully giving yourself over. In the monasteries, even the monks sleep in seated silence. Robes still singed, fingers still folded as though any moment they might be summoned to chant again. You are not a monk, but you have your own reasons. The coughs that steal away your uncle's breath at night, the tales of people who never woke, the wide-eyed warnings whispered by candlelight keep you from surrender. Your dreams come anyway. They do not need your body to be flat. They slip in through the smoke hole, drift down with the chimney soot, curl into your ears when your head nods forward. In them, your mother is young again. In them, you fly above your village with a straw broom and feel the roof thatch scratch your feet. In them, your grandmother's voice is still clear, telling you which herbs to crush for sleep, which ones will send you too far. And when the cock crows once, far off and wrong, not the true call, But the foolish cluck of one stirred too early. You stirred too. The coals are nearly ash. Your limbs are stiff. The dew has pushed cold fingers through the cracks in the wall. But the second sleep waits. It will be lighter, softer. It will carry you into dawn. So you shift, sighing, the blanket resettled, your head once more pillowed by cloth-wrapped straw. You do not lie flat. You never do. Instead, you return to the in-between place, where sleep folds itself gently around the spine, and dreams keep their feet on the ground. And outside, in the mist, the stars blink once more. You wake again, or perhaps you never fully slept. The night has deepened, hangs thick and quiet beneath the low timber rafters, as if even the air is wrapped in wool. Above you, the beams are dark with age, splintered and sagging just slightly, like tired shoulders grown used to centuries of weight. A spider's thread drifts down from one of them, barely visible in the glint of firelight that still flutters from the hearth. Blink slowly and let your head remain tilted against the folded cloth behind your back. The walls don't creak. Here stone does not whimper the way wood does, but they seem to hold their breath with you. The night is not hostile, only heavy. It settles on you like a cloak still damp from yesterday's rain, familiar and not entirely welcome. You shift slightly beneath the layered blanket's course. Wool, patched linen, one threadbare pelt of sheepskin each, one worn soft from years of use. You can feel the seams. You know which edge scratches. And still it is better than nothing. There are no windows in this part of the cottage, just a shuttered gap that leaks a pale stripe of moonlight when the wind shifts. That light moves now, quivering on the floor, as if startled by your breathing. The straw mattress sighs beneath your weight as you adjust your shoulders. A dull clump of dried thistle jabs at your hip. You know this spot too well? It is always the same thistle. It has lived in the mattress for years, shifting positions slightly with each turning season. In the next bed, your younger brother stirs. He mutters something wordless, a tangle of sounds shaped by a dream, and turns over with the careful motion of someone afraid of waking themselves. His sleep is flatter, deeper children can risk it. He lies almost fully down, one arm flung over his head like a forgotten doll. You envy him a little. He has not yet learned to fear the way lungs wheeze in the cold, how phlegm thickens in the throat, how easy it is to never rise again when the body is too still for too long. You remain propped upright, your back pressed against the wall's uneven chill. You can feel the stones through the blanket folded behind you, and you shift again, just slightly, to find the warm spot where your shoulder already melted a little space. These walls were built not to comfort, but to endure, stacked by hand, mortared with lime and stubbornness. They hold back wind and rain, yes, but they also hold in every smell, the sour musk of sweat and sleeping bodies, the distant sharpness of chamber pot contents waiting for dawn, the low, pleasant ghost of cooked onions still clinging to the hearth. Somewhere outside, a dog barks, then stops. Not a frantic bark, not warning, just the sound of life passing beyond your little house. You imagine the dog circling in straw, digging a hollow for itself in the dark, curling its tail against the cold. It is easy to slip into these images in the middle of the night when the world is quiet and everything seems close. You feel the way your heartbeat thuds softly beneath your ribs, not fast, not slow, just there, just steady. For now, a memory rises uninvited. Your grandfather, years ago, coughing so hard the whole bed shook. They'd brought in herbs, burned rosemary, rubbed camphor into cloth, and pressed it to his chest. He was made to lie down then flat, gasping, and he died like that, flat. Afterward, your grandmother would never lie fully again. She slept in a chair for 10 years, a wool shawl around her shoulders, and her head always drooped slightly forward, chin to chest. She said she didn't trust death not to come if she lay down and made it easy. You pull your own shawl closer. It's old, patched with care, and it smells faintly of smoke and time. You don't mind the scent. It reminds you of warm kitchens and stews, of the gentle sting of crushed leaves between your fingers. The cloth wraps around your shoulders like a second skin. Everything you wear to bed feels heavy, deliberate, meant to hold you to the earth. Time passes oddly in this space. There are no clocks. There's no ticking, no chimes. The passage of time is measured by the settling of the coals, by how far the moonlight crawls across the floor, by the creak of the rafters when the wind begins to shift. You've learned to read the night like this. It isn't dark. Not really. There's always some ember, some sliver of pale glow, something to show you where you are. You know this room in darkness better than you ever knew it in full daylight. You close your eyes not tightly, just softly. You let your mind drift, not to dreams, but to the quiet spaces between them. You think about the herbs hanging above the hearth. Mugwort, lavender, dried poppy heads, tied in bundles. Your mother believes they help with sleep. Your grandmother said they kept away the night walkers. You don't know what to believe, but you like their shapes, the way the dried leaves curl, the tiny seeds that fall like dust when the wind is strong enough. This second waking is a tender thing. You're not alone in it. Shh, you know that. Your village breathes with you. Somewhere a weaver stirs on their pallet. A baker stretches before rising to tend the oven. A midwife waits in a candlelit room, listening for the sound of a child's first breath. Sleep is not a single block of silence. It is a patchwork stitched with waking, woven with pauses and breath, and fear, and softness. You let your head tilt again, cheek resting on your own shoulder, spine curved like a question. You are tired, but not weary. You are still here. The body remembers how to wait. And when the morning comes, as it always does, you will not remember every detail of this hour, but your bones will, your breath will, the rafters will. And so, beneath them, you drift not away, but deeper in. It's not lying flat. Never flat. But folded into sleep as gently as linen folded into a chest, tucked away for another night. You wake again, not because of sound, but because of the silence that follows it. The fire has ceased its restless murmur. No hiss of sap, no crackle of shifting logs, no flutter of flame kissing the hearthstone. Only the low, breathless hush of coals gone dull. You open your eyes just a little, and the room looks changed. Not darker, there is still the dull red glow, buried deep in the ashes, but flatter, stiller. Like the world is holding itself together with one last thread of warmth. Your body has not moved much. You are still propped, still wrapped in layers, but the chill has found its way beneath the hems and folds. It slips like a thief between the gaps in the thatch, rides the creases of your sleeves, and settles behind your knees with a damp persistence. You pull the blanket closer, clutching it beneath your chin with fingers stiff from sleep. The cloth smells like sleep itself, worn wool and hearth smoke, with a faint undertone of the lavender your mother once tucked into the seams. You glance toward the hearth. The ash has risen in soft gray dunes, thin ridges where a stick once lay. If you lean just enough to the left, you can still see the heart of it, one glowing core. The color of a rose petal held up to the sun. You'll feed it soon, perhaps, not now. The cold hasn't fully bitten yet. It's more of a breath on the neck, a reminder of what waits beyond the blanket's edge. And for now, the quiet is sweeter than the heat. The room is small, but in the night it feels endless. The darkness seems to stretch beyond the corners, into the grain of the wood, through the gaps in the stones. You know it doesn't, not really, but your mind fills it with shadows shaped like things you've known, like the iron hook near the door, the dry hanks of garlic braided above the pantry, or your sister's shawl hanging crooked on its peg. They shift as you watch them, then return to stillness, unchanged. This hour belongs to no one. It is too late for dreams and too early for labor. No rooster calls. Else. No cartwheels creak down the lane. Even the owls are quiet.
No.
You breathe slowly, and your breath rises, visible a silver cloud that vanishes before you can follow it. It carries no scent, only the weight of sleep slipping out of your body. You remember a time when your mother spoke of fire as a living creature, how it needed feeding but could turn on you if angered. She would kneel before it like a priestess, placing each log with care, speaking to it without words. The fire was her companion, her enemy, her servant. And at night, when it shrank to embers, she warned you to be still. "Let it rest," she said once, her face lit from below like a statue in a shrine. "It's sleeping now, like we should be." But you are not quite asleep, not quite awake either. Your thoughts float freely, weightless and strange. You think of the bread dough set to rise near the hearth, wrapped in cloth and dreaming of warmth. You think of the chickens outside, feathers puffed against the cold, their heads tucked beneath wings. You think of saints, painted in chapels, sleeping forever with their eyes closed and hands folded. Not you, not yet. Your hands remain hidden beneath the blanket, curled like roots. You hear something no louder than a sigh. It might be the wind. It might be the house settling. The old beams often shift like that when the air thickens with night. You remember being small, certain that the house groaned on purpose, like it knew you were listening. You used to talk to it, press your ear to the wall, and whisper secrets into the grain of the wood. "I don't want to sleep," you would say. "I'm afraid I won't wake up." And the wall would stay silent, absorbing your fear like moisture. Even now, the fear is not gone. It has only grown softer, more familiar. You no longer fear the dark in the way of children with wide eyes and clutched dolls. Now you fear the cold that gathers behind your ribs, the silence that settles too heavily in a room, the days when someone doesn't wake and the bed is suddenly a grave. And yet this moment is gentle. The air is cold, yes, but your body is warm inside its shell of fabric and sleep. Your heart beats steady. You're upright, the way your grandmother always taught. "Let your lungs rest like birds on a branch," she used to say. "Don't lie flat unless you're ready to meet the saints." She was always full of such sayings, strung together like beads on a rosary. Sleep sitting up so your soul doesn't wander too far. If your feet point toward the door, death will pull you by the heels. Don't fall asleep with a comb in your hand or you'll forget your name. You didn't believe all of it. But you never sleep with your feet toward the door. You just don't. The hearth is calling to you now. Not loudly. Just a whisper in the back of your mind, like a friend reminding you of an errand left undone. If you don't tend to the fire, it will die. And if it dies, the cold will come with teeth. You wait another moment, feeling the air on your cheek grow colder. Then slowly, carefully, you slide your legs out from beneath the blanket. The floor is stone, and it greets your feet like ice. You suck in a breath, teeth clicking softly in surprise. You move with the care of someone trying not to disturb ghosts, first one step, then another, each foot seeking the warmest patch it can find. You kneel at the hearth. The coals are stubborn. You stir them gently with the poker, lifting their soft gray veil. One flares, just a little, a ruby flicker beneath the ash. You feed it a sliver of kindling, then another. You blow, gently. Not too hard, you've learned that lesson. Flames are shy. They don't like to be startled. You speak to it without speaking, just as your mother did. A little twig, a breath, a prayer you don't say aloud. The ember catches. A tiny flame appears, blue at first, then gold. It licks the wood like a tongue-testing warmth. You sit back on your heels and watch it grow. Doesn't need much, just patience, just time. You will stay by it a few more minutes, letting its glow press against your cheeks. Then you'll return to bed, not flat, never flat but curled upright once more. Arms wrapped around yourself like a closing flower, and the fire will burn again, not strong, but strong enough, will carry you through to dawn. You wake, not with a start, but with a slow uncurling, like a leaf turning toward the light after too long in shade. The fire still flickers, though it is low again, casting gentle ribbons of orange across the low beams above your head. Somewhere near your foot, a curl of warmth still lingers where the last log gave up its glow. You draw your knees in tighter beneath the blanket, feeling the coarse fabric against your calves. The way it scratches slightly, reassuring in its plainness. It is winter of that you are sure, though you haven't stepped outside in hours. The cold has its own scent, even indoors. A faint metallic Thames, a ghost of wood smoke. The lingering musk of damp wool coats hung near the door. It smells like frozen breath, like quiet cattle, like the ache behind your eyes when the wind cuts through your hood too fast. Winter's not cruel exactly, but it asks for patience, for slowness, for sleep that is more waiting than dreaming. You do not lie down to meet it. No one does, not truly. Even the sick are sometimes propped upright, as if defying gravity might confuse the death that hovers behind the frost. Upright sleeping is not a choice, it is a shape you inherit, like the bent fingers of your grandmother or the way your spine leans to the left after years of carrying firewood. You sleep like a prayer folded in two. The walls hold the cold at bay, but just barely. They do not shield you from the long arms of the wind, which creep in through cracks in the stone, through the gap beneath the door, through the very memory of the hinges. You know where the worst drafts are: by the corner of the hearth, behind the wooden chest, along the seam, where the roof meets the rear wall. You've stuffed them with straw, with wool scraps, with whatever you had, but the cold always finds you in the end. That's why you sleep how you do. That's why no one lies flat. Lying flat is for the careless, or for the rich, or for the dead. You've heard of feather beds, wide as wagons, stuffed so thick a person disappears inside. You've heard of pillows sewn from swan down, and bed curtains that trap heat like a breathless kiss. But even they, those with enough coins to sleep flat and warm off and rise with lungs full of damp, damp is the enemy. It creeps in when you are still. It curls in your chest and refuses to leave. The old people know this. It's why they prop themselves on elbows and bolsters, folded coats, cradles of cloth, not out of comfort, but out of wisdom. You look to the corner where your great uncle sleeps. He is a mound of shadows now, bundled in everything he owns, his hat still on his head, his feet pressed against a brick wrapped in rags. He sleeps upright too, though he nods sometimes and lists to the side, like a tree growing toward the last bit of sun. When he wakes to cough, he doesn't even open his eyes, just lifts his chest with effort, spits into the bucket, and sighs himself back into half-sleep. You've seen him sleep like this for years. You've never seen him lie flat, not even once. The shape of winter sleep is a layered thing. First come the clothes. You don't remove wool leggings, 2 tunics, a shawl tucked beneath your shift, then the bedding blankets, skins, cloaks, then the posture seated or leaning, spine curved just so, arms drawn in tight. Last comes the breaths, slow, shallow, guarded. You do not sleep deeply in winter. You sleep watchfully, like someone guarding a fire that must never die. And you are not alone. You sleep in company, always. The room is full of people, of breath, of the rise and fall of bodies known better by feel than sight. There's a rhythm to it. Someone exhales, and someone stirs. Someone murmurs, and someone sighs. It's not conversation, not really. It's just the night speaking in the language of sleepers. Sometimes you hum without meaning to, a tune passed down through bone and breath, the kind meant to soothe children who are already half asleep. And sometimes you listen for the sounds that don't belong, the sudden stillness, the skipped breath, the silence that follows too long after a cough. Once a neighbor's child died in the night. They said he laid flat, and it took him. Since then, no one lets the little ones lie back fully. You've seen mothers hold their babies upright against their chest, rocking gently through the first and second sleep alike. Even in sleep, the body knows to fight gravity just a little. Outside, the wind presses its face against the shutter. It does not howl, not yet, but it taps, curious, looking for a way in. You pull the blanket tighter. Your feet brush against the edge of your sleeping board, a plank raised just enough to keep you above the dirt-packed floor. It creaks faintly, but does not shift. The legs are steady. Your father built it with hands calloused from cart work, and though the edges are rough, it holds you well. Sometimes you dream of a bed with corners carved like ivy, with feathered quilts and pillows as soft as cream. But that is a dream for summer. For now, winter shapes everything, even the way you close your eyes. Do not surrender to sleep. You fold into it bit by bit, like a bird tucking its wings. You do not seek dreams. You welcome them when they come, if they are warm, if they are quiet, if they do not pull too far from the body. The mind must stay close, must remain within reach of the fire, the blankets, the breath of others. You do not lie flat. You never have. You sleep like your ancestors, like the ones who survived the cold and the ones who didn't. You sleep the way the earth does in winter still, upright beneath the frost, waiting for warmth, remembering the sun. And as you close your eyes again, firelight flickering in the dark like a heartbeat, you listen once more to the sleeping room. Not for danger, just for rhythm, just for the music of breath. And you rest, not flat, but folded, not silent, but still, not gone, but waiting. You wake for the second time, as you often do, not with alarm, not in confusion, but with the soft certainty that the night is not yet over. This is the hour between sleeps, the pause between one descent and the next, and it belongs entirely to you. The room is dim, painted in smudges of coal red and moon gray, and the air has grown colder since you last closed your eyes. You can feel it in your chest, in the tips of your ears, the spot where your shoulder pressed too long against the wall and has now begun to ache. Still propped upright, you blink slowly, adjusting not just to the dark, but to being again. The others sleep on around you, your brother, curled like a kitten beneath his cloak. Your mother seated in the corner like a watchful saint, though you know she too is far away in sleep. All of them breathing, sighing, shifting slightly in their blankets, part of the same low rhythm that guides the house through winter's long hours. It is a shared slumber, yet solitary too. No one speaks, no one stirs too loudly. The second sleep waits, but it is in no hurry. You stretch your fingers beneath the blanket, stiff and slow. The joints crack softly, like twigs under frost. You rub your palms together for warmth, then run them along your arms and thighs, coaxing a little life into your limbs. You think of your grandmother, who used to say that the body is like bread, it needs kneading, even in sleep. You smile, a faint upturn that no one can see, and shift slightly in your bed. This hour, this waking, was once sacred. Not just for monks or nuns, whose prayers broke the night like church bells, but for everyone. It was the hour for tending, for mending, for whispering to the dark, for thinking thoughts you'd forgotten during the noisy blaze of day. You do not fear it. You wait in it. You turn your head slowly, glancing toward the hearth. The fire has not gone out. It glows softly beneath a mound of ash, a gentle pulse, like a sleeping creature's breath. It is comforting, that glow. It reminds you that life, even banked, still burns. You will not feed it yet, not unless the cold sharpens its teeth again. For now, the glow is enough. You do not rise, but you do sit forward a little, the blanket falling into a V around your shoulders. Your back complains. Just a little. Your knees creak. These are not signs of pain, just age or use. You are young enough still to recover by morning. You draw your feet in beneath you again, pressing one against the other. Warmth shared, even by your own limbs, is worth something in this season. Outside, all is still. You cannot hear the wind. You cannot hear the owls. Even the dogs have gone quiet. It is a strange silence, not empty, but full of waiting. The world beyond the walls is sleeping more deeply than you are, wrapped in frost, blanketed in sky. The stars are sharp tonight. You saw them before bed, bright and bitter, as if each were carved from ice and suspended just above the roof. Somewhere beyond those stars, your priest says, are the gates of heaven. Somewhere far below them, you are waiting for your second sleep. You reach beside your bed and take up the small cloth pouch that hangs from the peg. Inside are a few sprigs of dried herbs, chamomile, lavender, and something your aunt calls moon's breath. You don't know its real name, only that it smells like hay and honey and helps you feel steady. You bring the bundle to your nose and inhale deeply. It is faint now, almost lost, but comforting. The scent reminds you of last summer, of heat and bees, and the scratch of dry grass against your ankles. Some people use this hour to pray, some to write, some even to visit neighbors soft-shoed, carrying a candle, exchanging whispered words or comfort where it's needed. You have done all of these things at some time or another, though tonight you stay where you are. Tonight you are content to rest without closing your eyes, to think without moving your lips. You think of the sheep you helped shear last spring, their wild eyes and trembling flanks. You think of the bread your mother shaped last week, her hands strong and sure as she folded the dough like a child's blanket. You think of the tiny bird you found by the well, one wing broken, its body warm in your palm. You do not know what became of it, but you remember the feeling of life in your hands, small, fragile, but fierce. This hour invites such remembering, not the sharp-edged kind that wounds, but the soft kind, the kind that cradles. You do not plan the day ahead, not yet. That is for later, when the sky begins to pale and the hearth has been stoked anew. Now is only for what has passed, what lingers still in the edges of your thoughts, like the scent of wood smoke in your hair. Sometimes in this hour, people say the dead walk quietly through their old haunts, checking doors, brushing fingers across tabletops. You do not fear them. If your grandmother passed through tonight, you would know. You might even ask her something about how she managed to sleep through her husband's coughs, or which herbs truly ease the winter ache. But tonight there is no presence, just stillness, just breath. Your own breathing deepens, your spine softens again, stiffness retreats from your limbs. Sleep is coming back to you, gentle as snow falling in a still forest. You do not force it, you simply let it arrive. There is no need for a posture change. You are already where you need to be, half-seated, cradled by cloth, your head tilting gently to one side, eyes drifting shut as though by instinct. This second sleep will be different. Lighter, perhaps, shorter, but it will carry you across the last stretch of night. You will not dream of fire or frost, but of warmth, of kneading bread, of the sun slanting across floorboards, of footsteps in soft earth. And when the light comes, when the first sound of the rooster echoes faintly through the shutters, you will wake not startled, but ready. So you let go, not fully, never fully, but enough. Enough to float downward back into the hush. Enough to feel your breath slow again, your body soften. Enough to return to sleep, folded like a letter, written in silence, sealed with breath. You wake slowly, not because you are rested, but because the breath of morning has crept in through the cracks. It has not touched your skin yet. No, not quite, but you can feel its presence waiting just beyond the thick linen curtains drawn around the bed. There is something weighty and close in the air inside, something that smells of your own breath, of damp wool, of the faint spice of last night's stew still clinging to your fingers. This is not a room you lie in, it is a world enclosed in folds of cloth and muffled silence. You do not yet move. The bed is not soft, but it is warmer than the air outside it. The straw beneath you has shifted during the night, creating little hills and valleys that press oddly into your side. And the blanket has tangled between your legs like a coiled snake. But the curtains thick and heavy hold in the warmth like a mother's arms. This is not a luxury, but a defense. You breathe slowly. The smell inside the bed curtains is not unpleasant, not really. It is simply familiar, human, alive. It holds the scent of sleep, the faint sweat from your feet, the ghost of your dreams. In summer it would be too close to stifling, but now, with the frost painting the shutters in fine silver veins, this cocoon of warmth feels necessary. The world beyond the curtain is too vast and too cold. Here the air is thick with the quiet rhythm of your own lungs. You reach out one hand and brush the inside of the curtain. It is coarse woven tightly, but unadorned. No one needs decoration in the dark. The purpose of this cloth is not to impress. It is to protect. From the chill, from prying eyes, from wandering spirits, perhaps. Curtains are more than cloth. They are a boundary between the world of sleep and the waking world. You do not leave them lightly. There are nights when the fire goes out before the second sleep begins, and the whole house grows quiet and still and cold. That's when the curtains feel most like a shelter, a final barrier against the breath of death that seems to seep from the stones themselves. You've heard the old tales that spirits roam while the world is hushed between midnight and cockcrow, and you, huddled under the wool, might feel their gaze if you dared peek out through the curtain gap. But the curtain also holds your body's warmth like a secret. The longer you lie still, the more the air thickens with it. You share this bed perhaps with your spouse, perhaps with your children, perhaps with a sister or friend or none at all, but regardless, the warmth builds. In the coldest months, it feels like being sewn into a cocoon with others, a necessary closeness that speaks more of survival than affection. Sometimes you wake to the sound of breath soft and steady, just inches from your ear. A child, perhaps, curled like a kitten against your side, or an older soul whose snore rattles in the dark. The bed curtain mutes it all, but doesn't hide it. These are the sounds of shared life, and you have learned not to flinch at them. There are small rituals inside this enclosed space. Before sleep, your fingers find the wooden beads of a rosary, or the edge of a folded cloth pouch where you keep a relic or a scrap of waxed paper bearing a saint's name. These things bring comfort not only to the mind, but to the body, talisman and token. Weight and texture, a reminder that you are not alone in the night. The bed may be still, but the world beyond your curtain is wide with mystery, and there are moments half wakeful. Between the two sleeps, when you think of the shape your breath has taken inside this space, imagine it lingering like mist, coiling gently above your mouth, too dense to escape. You wonder if the air has changed, if it has been breathed too many times. The thought passes. You pull the blanket tighter, but the curtain holds it all in. When at last you draw it aside, the light is gray, and the chill slips in at once, curling along your neck and down your spine. Your breath becomes visible now, blooming in front of your face like a ghost set free. The curtain, slack and silent, falls back into place behind you. You've left the warm world of dreams and stepped once again into the colder world of morning. You wake to the rustle of someone turning over beside you. Not just one someone, but perhaps two or three. The room is small, air thick with breath and bodies. And the flicker of a low-burning rushlight throws soft orange shadows across the beams above. You are not alone, and this is no surprise. Beds are rarely solitary things in your world. A bed is a shared thing, space negotiated in sleep, tangle of limbs and whispered snores, of warmth borrowed and sometimes grudgingly given. Your brother's foot is pressed against your shin, damp and calloused. Your cousin's elbow juts into your side. You lie crooked to avoid the worst of the angles. But the straw mattress shifts with each breath they take, and there's no such thing as true stillness here. The night is communal, as is the bed, and your dreams must learn to make room. In wealthier homes, they call it a great bed, a towering thing with carved posts and heavy curtains, broad enough to hold half a dozen souls. In your house, the bed is less grand, but no less crowded. On feast nights, or when relatives visit, the space becomes even tighter. Children lie crosswise like sacks of barley. Old grannies curl up at the edges like forgotten cloaks. Sometimes even the dog finds its way in, pressing his cold nose into the crook of your knee before settling with a sigh. There is a strange rhythm to such closeness. At first it chafes the constant shifting, the scent of others' breath, the twitch of limbs. But in time, it becomes a kind of comfort. There is safety in company. In a world where fire might strike at random, where illness can claim a household by dawn, where wolves are not yet legends, but possibilities. To sleep surrounded is to sleep watched over. Someone will hear the danger before you. Someone will wake and wake the rest. You are not alone in the dark. There is a hierarchy, of course. Grandfather gets the wall side no drafts for his bones. The youngest child might sleep nearest the foot, curled against someone's calves. You find your place according to age and status and sometimes by stealth, slipping into a slightly warmer spot when someone rises to use the chamber pot. Quarrels happen. You've had your share sharp words whispered so as not to wake the others. Accusations of stolen blankets, of nudging too much in dreams. But in the morning, the sun finds you all tangled again, complaints softened by sleep. In the manners of the rich, servants often sleep on pallets in the same room as their masters, not out of affection but because fire and theft never sleep. A body in the room is a pair of eyes, a pair of ears. And so, the closeness is replicated, even across class. Shared space means shared vigilance. Even kings, it is said, were rarely truly alone. A page at the foot of the bed, a guard in the corner, a priest kneeling with prayers. Aloneness is not yet a luxury, it is a risk. Sometimes as you lie half dreaming in the hush of midnight, you wonder what it would be like to sleep in a bed made only for you, a bed without elbows and knees, without wheezing or snoring or twitching. You imagine sheets smooth as church linen, a pillow that keeps your head to itself, a silence that stays unbroken. And then someone beside you shifts and murmurs, their breath warm on your neck. And the chill in your bones says perhaps it is better this way. You have heard stories, of course, of strange sleepers. The widow who keeps a separate bed, claiming dreams come to her more sweetly when alone. The foreign priest, who lies on a board of wood, with only a stone for a pillow, believing pain draws him nearer to God. The hermit in the woods who sleeps, sitting upright in a tree, hidden from beasts and men alike. Such sleepers are whispered about. They are not ordinary. There is something suspicious in solitude. Much space invites devils, some say. On winter nights, when the wind whistles through the shutters and the rushes on the floor rustle like whispers, the bed becomes a fortress. Bodies huddled like coals, covered with whatever patchwork of cloth can be found, faded wool, mended linen, even old cloaks no longer fit for walking. You count heartbeats. You count breaths. You wait for the dark to pass. And when morning comes, you rise in stages. One by one, reluctant and stiff, you peel yourselves from the shared warmth. Your cousin yawns, arms flung wide. Your brother scratches his head and looks for his stockings. Someone complains of a sore hip, another of a dream too vivid to forget. When all around you, the room fills with the sounds of waking, a kind of music, chaotic and real. There are no sheets to straighten, no fluffed pillows. The straw is shaken, the cloths are folded, and the bed disappears again into the day's business. It is not an object of pride, not a fixture of status, but a necessity. A nest made anew each night, a tangle of familiarity, a cradle of shared breath. You go about your day knowing that come nightfall, the ritual will begin again. The jostling for space, the murmurs of stories shared in the dark, the occasional fart that earns a groan and a pillow swat. It is messy. It is human. It is how you sleep. And somewhere in the middle of the night, half awake, half lost in a dream about running through a meadow or falling into a stream, you will turn, seeking that warm spot, that known rhythm of bodies breathing together. It will be there. It always is. Because in the Middle Ages, sleep was never just yours. It belonged to all of you. That's it. And the night, like the bed, was something best shared. You wake again. Not from rest, not from dreams, but from the thin, flickering whisper of candlelight. Someone is moving below your loft, their feet brushing across the packed dirt, disturbing the silence in the same way one disturbs a still pond with a stone. It is the candlemaker, and she never sleeps when the moon is full. She says it's bad luck to ignore the moon's wide eye, to sleep when it stares straight at your home like that. You lie in the loft, wrapped in a scratchy wool blanket that has long since surrendered any warmth of its own. Your back aches from the wooden plank beneath the straw-stuffed mattress, and your limbs are stiff from sleeping half-sitting, as always. Upright, tilted, propped, you are not quite lying down, and not quite awake either. The fire in your body has cooled with age, and your bones groan when you shift. But the candlelight below gives you something to watch, something to hold on to. She is speaking softly to herself, the way some people talk to animals or the dead. Cannot make out the words, but the rhythm is their hum, a chant. A litany to the wax and the wick, and the way time bends when you refuse to lie flat. The air smells of tallow, hot fat bubbling in its pot, sweet and rancid both. It coils up into the rafters, into your lungs, mingling with the straw dust and the cold. You do not mind. This is how nights are. Long, strange, layered with quiet and repetition. There are people who sleep all through the night, or so they say. Monks in their cloisters, too tired to stir.
All day.
Lords behind thick curtains, guarded by dogs and superstition. But you know, you are of the second sleep, the in-between time. First comes the early sleep, the sleep before midnight. Then comes this, the hours of wakefulness, when the body rises and the mind wanders. And only after that, if you are lucky, will come the second rest, the return to the pillow, the folding in. You know this rhythm like you know your own hands. You were raised on it like bread baked twice. Your grandmother used to tell you stories in the middle of the night while she twisted yarn or plucked feathers. Those were the best stories, ones too fragile for daylight, ones that could only survive in the hush between sleeps. Below, the candlemaker pours the melted tallow into her molds. Hear the clink of the metal forms, the soft thud of her hand pressing something into place. She breathes heavily, more out of habit than exhaustion. The heat of the pot steams her face, and the wax climbs her sleeves in faint splatters. She has burns along her wrists, old ones, silver scars shaped like spilled moons. They say wax remembers, that it holds the shape of every vessel it was poured into. That to burn a candle is to wake a memory sealed in fat. You think of this now, watching her lift a finished taper, hold it to the light, and trim the wick with a small black blade. The candle seems alive in her hands, its soft body still cooling, still forming its final breath. She sets the finished row on the wide board beside the hearth. Each one stands like a tiny sentinel, ready to glow. Light makers, yes, but also timekeepers. Candle marks the hour by shortening. Its life is a brief and beautiful subtraction. You've watched them all your life, how one candle can last through prayer, through a child's fever, through the darkest parts of winter. You've counted ours not by clocks, but by wax. A faint crack of frost loosens from the roof above you, dropping to the earth like a splinter of glass. You draw your blanket closer, shift again in your half-sitting pose. Always half-sitting, you've never known the feeling of fully lying down without fear. Even as a child, your mother whispered the tales how the dead lie flat, how only corpses sleep with their mouths open to the ceiling, how sleeping too deep lets spirits mistake you for one of their own. So, like most in your village, you sleep tilted. Back propped on bundled straw, knees drawn close. The soul, they say, can slip out if the spine is too still. Better to sit as though you're merely resting, not gone, not ready to be claimed. The candlemaker coughs below, and you hear her mutter something to the fire. You imagine her face lined, soft with soot, eyes yellowed from years of smoke and sleeplessness. She has never feared the night. She was born during one, she says, while the stars wheeled high and her mother screamed her name into the dark. Belongs to the in-between hours, the flickering hours, the spaces where candles are needed most. You once asked her if she minds the solitude, and she only smiled, one tooth missing. Some people need sunlight, she said. But I like the company of flames. They don't ask for anything but air. Outside, the world is still. The frost has grown on the window ledge like lace. Your breath fogs the air just above your lip. You watch the glow from below dance across the beams, casting slow-moving shadows that look like memories walking. There will be a second sleep soon. You will drift back into it, like a boat gliding into harbor, guided by stars and silence. But for now, you stay still. You listen to the crackling wax, the hush of footsteps, the soft clink of molds. You listen to the heartbeat of a night that does not end with dusk, but folds into itself like a book of soft, unspoken stories. You close your eyes not to sleep, but to remember what it means to be part of this quiet procession of lives lit by fire. The candlemaker continues her rhythm, and above her, you float like a shadow. Half asleep, half awake, neither one nor the other. You belong here in this gentle middle, old wax-scented hour. You wake to the smell of ash and last night's stew, still lingering faintly in the air. The fire in the hearth is no more than a memory now, a cluster of glowing orange coals breathing softly in the dark. You don't rise quickly. Your joints are stiff and reluctant, your breath still warm from sleep, caught somewhere between the dream you left behind and the cold stone that waits below. The bed you lie in is hardly a bed at all, a low frame of worn wood or perhaps nothing more than a tightly packed mat of straw. The stuffing is shifted in the night, and a rib of wicker jabs gently at your hip. Still, this place stuck near the hearth is warmer than most corners of the house. A prized spot you share with a cousin, a sibling, or the family dog who sleeps, curled against your legs. All of you instinctively huddle close, an unconscious knot of warmth and breath, bound together by shared blood and the need to keep the frost away. The fire was banked the night before, carefully covered with ash to keep it sleeping rather than dead. You listen to its faint crackles now and reach out from the blankets, your fingers numb as they brush the chilly air. The hearth is the heart of the home, and sleeping beside it feels both sacred and slightly dangerous. Sparks might jump, smoke might drift, yet the risk is worth it, for that precious warmth that seeps into your bones and keeps you dreaming longer than you ought. In winter, when the winds claw at the shutters and rattle the thatch above your head, this little bed by the hearth becomes a sanctuary. It is the only thing standing between you and the bitter bite of night. Others in the household sleep upright in chairs, pressed back against the walls. But you, whether due to age or a fortunate turn of luck, have earned the privilege of lying almost flat. Not fully, of course. That would be an invitation to death, or so they say. The position of a corpse. But you're tilted, bolstered by sacks and folded tunics, your head and chest raised as if in perpetual readiness. Even in sleep, medieval caution keeps a firm grip. You reach for your woolen shawl and pull it higher. Somewhere behind you, the stirring begins. Small, familiar sounds of another soul, waking slowly, joints creaking, a soft groan, the shuffle of feet finding the floor. You don't speak yet. Morning talk is a luxury that comes only after fire and bread. The silence is thick, but not uncomfortable. It's the hush of people accustomed to one another, people who've slept side by side through storms, fevers, births, and the uneasy quiet of unspoken sorrows. The fire must be fed. This is the first task, and it cannot wait. You rise slowly, brushing straw from your tunic, careful not to wake the others still nestled on benches and stools, their heads lolling forward in crooked angles of exhausted prayer. You kneel at the hearth, lifting the heavy iron poker. The ashes crumble softly as you stir them, seeking the faint red glow beneath. There it is, that ember, that stubborn little heartbeat of warmth. You coax it gently, feeding it thin splinters and dried moss, shielding it with your hands until a hesitant flame licks its way upward. The light it gives is gold and quiet, and you feel it kiss your cheeks like the touch of an old friend. With the fire blooming again, the room begins to breathe. Shadows pull back from corners. Faces become faces once more, not smudged masks of sleep. Someone coughs. Another mutters something about the cold. The dog shakes out his ears. And you, wrapped in your threadbare shawl, settle back into your place beside the hearth, this time upright because now the day has begun. The smell of heat and smoke settles in your hair. You pour water into the pot, place it above the flames, and watch it begin to steam. Others will want warm drink, if only broth or watered ale. The bed beside the fire disappears beneath a blanket folded with the same care as a chapel cloth. No one must see how you slept, not fully down, of course, just tilted just enough. That would be a confession. You glance toward the crucifix above the lintel. Its shadow long now in the new light of dawn, you wonder. Not for the first time, whether God minds how you sleep, upright like a sinner repenting, or near flat like the bones buried beneath the chapel floor. You wonder whether saints ever dreamed by the hearth, knees pulled to chest, cheeks glowing from firelight, or whether they ever envied you this warmth, this comfort, however small. By now, the house is stirring in earnest. Children blink against the light. The old man groans from his stool. Someone reaches for bread left out overnight, hard as stone, but it will soften when soaked. You sit back, your body warmed again, your hands outstretched to the hearth. The quiet of the night melting away with the steam. Outside, the wind still howls. But inside, the bed is empty now, and no one will know how nearly you gave yourself over to softness, to sleep, to the deep and horizontal rest they say is dangerous. You lived another night, and that is proof enough. You adjust your shawl and begin to ladle broth into wooden cups, and the fire crackles its thanks. You do not sleep through the night. No one expects to. In this age before clocks and caffeine, before the glow of gaslights and the tick of midnight hours, sleep does not arrive in one long, unbroken stretch. It comes in waves, in cycles, like tides pulled by some unseen moon. The first sleep takes you early, perhaps not long after sunset, when the hearth still holds a whisper of warmth, and the chores of the day lie folded beneath the hush of darkness. You sleep sitting up, as you've always done, your back supported by straw-stuffed bolsters, your legs draped in wool, your hands tucked close to your belly for comfort. Around you, others do the same, grandmother in her corner with her shawl over her head, the children curled like cats in shared blankets, and your father snoring softly with his arms crossed like a monk in prayer. But then, without fail, you wake. It is not morning. It is something in between, a wide, dim hour when the fire has fallen to embers and the wind brushes the shutters like a beggar seeking a crack. You open your eyes to a world lit only by the moon and whatever remains of the coals. There is no confusion, no dread. This waking is expected, a thing so ordinary it has a name. The watch. The first waking. The sacred space between first and second sleep. You listen to the silence, which is never quite still. A dog stirs in the straw, somewhere nearby. Someone coughs in their sleep, a rasping bark that echoes through the rafters. The beams above you creak with the slow shifting of the roof, as if the house itself is dreaming. There are no candles lit, not unless you're lucky enough to have dipped your own in the weeks before, or wealthy enough to burn beeswax without guilt. But the moonlight is soft and sufficient. You can see your breath, faint and white. You wrap another layer of blanket around your shoulders and sit with yourself. Sometimes you pray. These hours are holy for many. You've heard the priests speak of them, the time when angels are said to walk the earth more closely. When souls in purgatory might whisper in your dreams if you listen well. Some rise to say their matins, their nocturnes, murmuring Latin psalms into the cold. Others reflect on the day, or on eternity, or on their sins. But not all is sacred in these hours. There is humanity, too. A quick trip outside to relieve yourself beneath the stars, the earth hard with frost or damp with dew. A quiet word exchanged between spouses, faces close in the dark. Some make love or whisper gossip, or shift the baby from one side of the cradle to the other. Some sit with aching joints, or the familiar pinch of hunger that never quite fades. The waking time makes room for all of it. You once asked your mother why we wake, why sleep is broken like a loaf into halves. She said that sleep is like work, it must rest too. She said God built the night to be walked through, not just slept in. And in the winter, when nights stretch long and deep, you are thankful for the pause. Without it, the darkness would feel endless. With it, you know where you are in time. First sleep, then waking, then second sleep. A rhythm you can trust. There is a quiet comfort to these waking hours, a gentleness that daytime does not offer. The world is hushed, but not dead. You are aware in a way you aren't during the brightness. You notice the way the air smells of peat smoke and wool, the way your skin prickles with chill even under layers. You hear the tick of the hearth settling, the scratch of mice in the wall. The tiny stirrings of life that persist while all else is paused. Sometimes, if the coals allow, you rekindle a tiny flame, just enough to warm your fingers or heat a little water for tea. Not that there is tea, not as it will one day be known, but herbs steeped in water, valerian, chamomile. Linden flower bitters that coax sleep to return or soothe a restless belly. You drink from a wooden cup and let the warmth pool in your throat. If the weather is kind and the moon is full, you might even step outside for a breath of fresh air. The fields are silvered and ghostly. Trees hold their arms up to the sky like frozen dancers. Your breath rises in soft clouds, and the quiet is so complete that it hums. There is no fear, only stillness. You know the land. You belong to the night as much as you do to the day. And when the time comes, when your eyelids grow heavy again, and the warmth of the blankets beckons, you return to your place. The second sleep comes more softly than the first. It seeps into your bones rather than crashing over you. You surrender to it not as a child dragged to bed, but as a pilgrim reaching a shrine. It is familiar, kind. You know it will take you deep. They say that dreams in second sleep are different, richer, more vivid. You do not always remember them, but sometimes they cling to your waking like a scent or a half-heard song. You dream of water, of running barefoot down forest paths, of old stories whispered in your ear by voices you cannot name. Sometimes you dream of those who have died. Sometimes they speak. Second sleep lasts until the cock crows, till the sky turns the color of old pewter, and the cold once again nudges you awake. You rise then, slow and stiff, blinking into the gray of morning. But the night has given you something, not just rest, but witness, a quiet kind of knowing, a passage through the dark. And so you begin the day not as if it were fresh and sudden, but as if it had been waiting for you patiently, like the fire that still glows in the hearth, like the bread rising under cloth, like the light itself, always returning. You ease yourself down onto the creaking wooden chair that has stood in the corner for as long as your memory stretches. It is not an elegant chair. The legs are uneven, the seat is unpadded. The back curves only slightly, enough to hint at comfort, but never truly deliver it. Yet here in the quiet dark of your chamber, this crooked chair becomes a bed, or at least the closest thing to one that allows your soul to feel safe. It is a strange thing, this nightly ritual. You do not lie flat, not even when your body pleads for it. Something deep in your bones resists the thought. Lying flat feels final, funereal. It feels like the way corpses are dressed and displayed, mouths stitched closed, hands folded, eyes painted with coin-shaped lids for journeys no one returns from. Flatness belongs to the grave, not to the living. And so, like your father before you, and your father's father before him, you sleep sitting up, propped by habit and fear. The chair is your cradle, your sentry, your confessional. Its hard wooden frame bears your weight just enough to allow your eyes to close without falling fully into vulnerability. You drape a woolen cloak across your lap, tuck your feet beneath it, and let your head slump gently forward. Sometimes you wake hours later with your chin pressed to your chest, your neck aching, your mouth dry. But other times, on the best of nights, the stillness takes you softly, like a slow-falling leaf landing on a quiet stream. Around you, the room holds its breath. The fire has long since died. The hearth is a cave of shadows, flickering only with the last glow of memory. The straw mattress nearby remains unused, its shape untouched, too horizontal to trust. You glance at it sometimes, tempted, when your limbs grow sore from weeks of harvest or the long aching of winter, but always some whisper inside stops you. To lie down fully, to give yourself wholly to sleep, feels like surrendering to something older than rest, something that hovers between this world and the next. Your mother told you stories of people who died in their sleep, and she said it as though it were not peaceful, but shameful. As though sleep had tricked them into letting go to easily, she would mutter prayers before she dozed, 3 times in succession, each one guarding against demons that crept across thresholds in the hours between midnight and cockcrow. The devil worked hardest when men were horizontal, she said. Better to meet the night halfway, knees bent, spine firm, eyes ready to open at the faintest creak of a floorboard. There is also the matter of sin. The body, prone and loosened, becomes an invitation to desire. Priests preach caution. Dreams are suspect, things unguarded, lascivious, full of murmurs and shadows and slippery thoughts. Upright, one may keep vigilance. Upright, one may resist temptation. The chair disciplines as it comforts. You cannot stretch out in luxury. You cannot sprawl into indulgence. You perch, you fold, you surrender only partially. The soul stays tethered. Sometimes you hear the snores of your neighbor through the thin wattle wall. He sleeps flat, sprawled across his straw pallet like a drunken lord. You wonder if he is brave or foolish, reckless, or simply weary of upright caution. You imagine his dreams, fast, feverish things, filled with wild feasts and floating devils and lovers with no faces. You imagine his limbs twitching, his mouth open, his breath like a storm. But you do not envy him. You know too well the things that come when the body forgets its guard. The chair, for all its austerity, has become an anchor. The hollows of your hips, the bow of your back. Over the years it has softened slightly, not through cushions, but through understanding. The wood, worn by your persistence, accepts you more gently now. The creak it once gave when you sat is quieter. The tilt it once held has evened out just enough. You have grown into each other, you and the chair, like 2 old friends who never say much but understand everything. There are nights when the sleep does not come easily. When your legs twitch and your head refuses to bow, and your thoughts circle like moths around a candle's flame. On such nights you shift in place, fold your hands, press your palms together, and murmur small prayers, not always to saints or angels, but sometimes to the silence itself. You pray for safety, for slumber without darkness, for dreams that do not leave residue on your waking skin. You pray to wake, that is all, just to wake. Sometimes you recall the chair in your grandmother's cottage, the one padded with bits of old cloth, smelling of dried lavender and boiled milk. She had been the only one you knew who slept lying down. It said she was too old to fear anything but mice in the cupboard and cold wind through the rafters. She had a boldness in her that seemed beyond rules. You wondered then if the fear of lying down faded with age, or if it simply waited until weariness outweighed worry. You're not sure you'll ever get there. For now, the chair will do. It leans against the rough stone wall. It's a small woolen cushion stuffed with hay, and once part of a kneeler at the chapel rests behind your back. A cloth is draped over the seat to soften the splinters. You shift your weight again, pull the cloak up to your chin, and close your eyes. A shallow breath, a moment of stillness. The room presses in, heavy with night. You sleep not deeply, not entirely, but enough. Enough to pass the hours, enough to forget the cold, enough to wake again, upright and alive. You wake once more in the blackness of night, though it's no longer quite as dark as before. A faint silver glow slips between the cracks of the shutters, spilling thin shafts of moonlight across the rough-hewn floor. The walls around you seem to lean inward, closer than they did in the earlier hours. Older, whispered with centuries of secrets and breaths that have come before. The timber groans softly, a low murmur that you imagine is the house itself breathing, alive and watching. You sit upright on your bed, wool wrapped tight around your shoulders, knees pulled close like a small child guarding itself from the chill. You listen to the silence, but it is not silent. It holds its own language, creaks and sighs. The slow settling of frost against the window panes, the distant call of an owl somewhere beyond the thatch. You have learned to understand these sounds, to let them speak without fear. They are the night's voice, the pulse of a world that does not sleep as deeply as you do. Somewhere down the hall, the candlemaker is stirring again, her movements faint but steady. You imagine her hands dipped in tallow and soot, shaping wax into fragile forms. She works through the night because the candles she makes are not just light, they are protection. Prayer, and a promise that the dark will not claim the house too soon. You envy her purpose, the way she gives form to the fleeting glow, capturing something eternal in a flickering flame. Your own vigil is quieter, less tangible. Keep watch in your thoughts, tracing the contours of the past and the mysteries hidden in the flickering shadows. You think of those who slept here before you, names forgotten, lives lived and vanished like smoke. You wonder if they too sat awake, wrapped in blankets and superstition, waiting for dawn to break the spell. The old stories rise in your mind, as they often do in these hours. Tales told in the whispering walls of haunted cottages, of spirits who slip through cracks in the night and slip away with the first crow of the rooster. Stories of souls caught between worlds, unable to rest until their wrongs are righted, or their names spoken aloud with kindness. You do not know if these tales are true, but you hold them gently. It's like a fragile thread connecting you to something beyond the visible. A chill drifts through the room, soft and sudden. You pull your cloak tighter, the rough wool scratching at your skin. It is a reminder that night is never still, that the air itself carries memory and longing. You breathe in the scent of smoke and damp earth, of worn leather and dried herbs hanging from the rafters. The smells are heavy with life, but also with the quiet decay that attends every moment, every breath. You reach out and touch the rough wood of your bedpost, tracing its worn surface with your fingers. The grain is smooth here, softened by countless hands and years. It feels warm despite the cold, as if it holds a secret warmth meant only for those who dare to rest beside it. You imagine the lives folded into this small space, lovers who whispered in the dark, children who cried in the night, elders who breathed their last under these very beams. Outside, the wind stirs again, carrying with it the faint sound of a bell tolling somewhere far off. The church's midnight call, a reminder of time passing even when all seems suspended. You close your eyes for a moment and let the sound wash over you. Deep and mournful, like a prayer sent up through stone and sky. When you open them again, the candle stub on the windowsill is nearly spent. The flame flutters, casting the last shaky light before it finally dies. Darkness floods the room once more, but it no longer frightens you. You have learned to embrace this deep shadow, to find comfort in the spaces between light. Your breath slows, your heart steadies. You fold your hands in your lap, resting them lightly on the worn fabric of your tunic. You think of the dawn to come, the promise of warmth and renewal carried on the pale morning wind. But for now, you remain awake, a sentinel in the night, wrapped in the hush of whispered walls and quiet prayers. You are part of the long chain of watchers, those who have guarded the night with patience and reverence, who have held vigil against the dark, and who have welcomed the first fragile light with open arms. In this moment, you are both past and present, shadow and flame, breath and silence. The night is vast and ancient, but you belong to it, and it belongs to you. You wake to the soft sigh of night air brushing through the cracks in the walls. It is a sound as familiar to you as your own breath, a subtle caress that moves through the room like a whispered secret. The chill it brings pricks your skin beneath the layers of wool and linen, reminding you that no matter how tightly you bundle yourself, the night is never fully tamed. Your body still aches from the day's labor, but this ritual, this nightly communion with the cold air, feels like a cleansing, a gentle rite, passed down through generations. You lean forward on your wooden stool, arms resting on your knees, and breathe deeply. The air tastes of damp earth and smoke, faintly sharp with the temps of distant pine and the sweetness of dried herbs hung by the hearth. Outside, the village lies quiet, wrapped in the stillness of long winter hours. You imagine the roofs beneath a dusting of frost, the narrow lanes ghostly under a silver moon. Somewhere a lone dog's bark echoes far away, a lonely sound swallowed quickly by the dark. You feel the pulse of the world beyond your walls, slow, patient, alive. In this moment, the night is not just absence, but presence. It is the cold against your skin, the whispered movements of unseen creatures, the soft rustle of leaves brushing stone. It is the breath of ancestors who once stood where you stand, felt the same chill, the same solitude. You honor them now, not with words, but with stillness. The cold seeps into your bones, sharp and awakening. You close your eyes and imagine the wind's journey, over hills and rivers. through forests and fields, carrying the scent of rain yet to fall, of earth still waiting to thaw. You feel yourself as part of that endless motion, a single breath within the vast, slow rhythm of night. This ritual is more than habit, it is protection. The night air carries stories, some whispered by the living, some murmured by the dead. To breathe it in is to connect with the mysteries that shape your world. To acknowledge the thin veil between what is seen and unseen. When you finally draw back inside, you wrap your cloak tighter, fingers stiff from the cold. The hearth awaits, a silent promise of warmth. You kneel to tend the dying embers, coaxing life back into the fire with careful hands.
Ow.
The scent of burning wood rises, filling the room with comfort. As the flame grows, shadows retreat. You watch them dance across the walls, shapes shifting like memories made visible. The room feels smaller, more intimate, a sanctuary against the vastness outside. You return to your place by the fire, the night air still lingering on your skin, a quiet reminder of the world beyond these walls. Sit upright, as always, cradled by blankets and resolve. Sleep will come again, but for now, you hold this moment, the ritual of night air. The embrace of shadow and flame, the timeless dance of dark and light. In this space, you are both guardian and guest, watching and waiting until the dawn stretches across the land once more. You awake to the gentle press of wool against your skin, a familiar embrace that has become a second shelter beneath the chill of night. The thick blanket, rough but comforting, is folded carefully around your shoulders, cradling you in warmth as much as memory. It smells faintly of sheep and smoke, and the faint sweetness of dried lavender tucked away during the last harvest. This scent, like a whispered lullaby, soothes the restless ache that lingers in your bones after a day of labor and the long hours spent upright. The room is quiet, save for the slow, steady breathing of those who share your space. Each breath a soft rhythm in the dark, a chorus of life pulsing gently beneath the heavy stillness. You listen, letting the softness of silence wash over you, a balm to the racing thoughts and shadows that gather when the world falls away. Your body is stiff from the way you have slept half-seated, propped by bolsters of straw and cloth, never fully horizontal, never fully at ease. Yet in this awkward repose there is a strange comfort, a balance between surrender and vigilance. You have learned to trust this posture, this subtle tension in muscle and spine, as a shield against the unknown things that stir in the night. Outside, the wind whispers against the shutters, a persistent murmur that threads through the house like a living thing. It carries the scent of damp earth in distant woods, of moss and frozen streams yet to thaw. Sometimes you imagine the wind as a messenger, traveling unseen, gathering stories and secrets from the sleeping village below, and weaving them back into the darkness where only the night knows. The hearth has been banked for hours now, the fire reduced to a bed of smoldering coals that pulse faintly beneath a blanket of ash. Their soft glow casts a warm, ruddy light on the rough wooden walls, painting them with the flicker of shadows that dance and stretch like memories come alive. You reach out, fingers grazing the cool stone, feeling the lingering warmth seep slowly into your skin, a quiet comfort in the deep cold of night. You remember the stories told by your grandmother of times when the wool was scarce, and the cold more biting than the sharpest blade. She spoke of nights spent huddled in fields beneath the open sky, wrapped in rough blankets or nothing at all, the stars like watchful eyes overhead. Those nights were long and filled with whispering fears of wolves howling in the distance, of spirits walking in the moonlight, of the slow, inevitable march of winter's grip. Now, wrapped in layers of wool and linen, you are safer, but not unafraid. The fear is a quiet thing, nestled in the edges of sleep, a shadow that flickers just beyond the warmth of the hearth. You have learned to live with it, to fold it gently into the fabric of your nights. The silence here is not emptiness, but presence. It is the soft sigh of breath, the rustle of cloth as someone shifts in sleep, the faint scrape of a mouse on the rafters. It is the stillness that holds all things together, the fragile thread between wakefulness and dreams, between body and spirit. You close your eyes again, letting the weight of wool and the softness of silence cradle you. Your thoughts drift like smoke from the hearth, slow and curling, carrying you gently toward the deep rest that comes not in long stretches but in quiet moments gathered through the night. You know the morning will come soon with its gray light and the clatter of daily life. But for now, in this room filled with shadows and warmth, you are home. You wrapped in wool, held by silence, waiting for sleep to find you once more. It is late, later than late. That hour, when even the dogs have stopped barking and the owls have grown quiet, their work done, their wings folded like cloaks against the rafters of forgotten barns. You sit upright, half awake, half asleep, just as you've always done. Your breath is shallow and still. The hearth has grown cold. The night has wrapped itself around the house like a heavy shawl spun of darkness and damp. But it is not the cold that wakes you. It is something else. A shift in the air. A feeling more than a sound. Like a hush falling over a crowd just before something sacred is spoken. Your eyes adjust slowly, blinking into the gray-brown murk. Around you, the outlines of familiar forms rest beneath blankets, shawls, and cloaks. People you know, bodies you love, shaped now like rocks under moss. But in this quiet moment, you feel terribly, tenderly alone. There is an ache in your chest that has no name, a small, sharp thing that pulses in time with your heart. You don't know why it has come. You do not need to. It visits often in the dark hours, cloaked in silence and the weight of years. Slipping between the cracks in the stone wall and perching beside you like a patient bird. Sometimes it is grief. Sometimes it is worry. Sometimes it is the memory of something you never quite understood, but never forgot either. This is the hour of the soul's unraveling. You pull the wool tighter around your shoulders, not for warmth, but for comfort. The edges of the blanket are rough from years of use. It seems repaired so many times that the original thread is long gone, placed by bits of flax, old shirt cuffs, and a piece of blue string from a market bundle, long forgotten. Yet in this blanket there is history. There is touch. There is the memory of hands. Your mother's, your sister's, your own. Threading needle after needle to mend what frayed. Your thoughts drift like milk into water. You think of the midwife who lives 2 cottages down. Old as the hills, and twice as stubborn, people say. She walks bent, but fast. Muttering to herself, fingers always smelling faintly of smoke, and something bitter green. They say she was born with the veil, that thin membrane of skin some babies carry over their faces at birth. A sign, they say, of second sight, of knowing, of walking between the worlds. And tonight, in the depth of night, you feel as though she might walk in through the door and know exactly what is heavy in your chest. You remember her visits? Her voice low, thick with knowledge, soft as beeswax melting in a dish. She once sat beside you for a whole night when fever gripped your brother. She said nothing but brewed herbs and hummed strange songs with no words. When morning came, your brother was still weak but breathing more easily, and the shadows on the wall seemed somehow less sharp. There is something in the presence of such a person, one who carries the old knowing, that steadies the shaking breath. Someone who speaks to the bone of the thing, not just the skin of it. Someone who sits with your fear and does not look away. You wonder if she is awake now. She too sits upright by a low fire, sifting dried sage leaves through her fingers, listening to the murmurings of the house. The thought comforts you, not because she is doing anything, but simply because she is there. Somewhere in the night, awake, listening, knowing. That is what you wish for in this moment. Not to be soothed with promises or reason, not to be told everything will be all right. You only wish to be seen. Held in a silence that doesn't try to fix or mend but simply understands. You shift slightly, the straw beneath your pallet creaking faintly. Someone else stirs, sighs, then stills again. The house returns to its hush, to its patient breathing. And slowly, slowly, the ache begins to soften. It does not vanish. No, these aches never do. They live in the body like old songs, echoing now and then when the air shifts just right. But they can be cradled, acknowledged. You imagine the midwife placing a hand on your chest and saying nothing, it's only letting the warmth of her skin tell you. Yes, I know. There is magic in that kind of silence. It's a kind that needs no explanation. The kind that makes space for sorrow without fear. The kind that sits with you and waits until your breath steadies on its own. Outside, a breeze stirs the eaves. Somewhere far off, a rooster cries out, confused or impatient, as if it too feels the strangeness in the air. Dawn is still a long way off. The stars are still thick above the house, though you cannot see them. But you feel their presence like pinpricks of light on your skin. You do not know what woke you. You may never know. Perhaps it was a memory, a dream, sadness drifting down through the beams like dust. Perhaps it was nothing, or everything. But now, sitting upright with your feet tucked beneath you, and your heart a little less heavy, you feel the night take on a different shape, not a void, but a vessel. You lean your head back, eyes half closed, listening again to the breathing of the house. You imagine the midwife sleeping now, the lines of her face softened in rest. You smile just a little, because something ancient and quiet inside you has remembered how to sit with fear, how to wrap it in wool, how to let it be what it is until it decides to go. Even with the bed curtains drawn, even with the fire burned down to its last obedient coal, even wrapped in your thickest wool, the cold is not gone. It doesn't live outside, not really. It has always lived with you. It knows your name, knows how your joints ache, how your toes curl in sleep, how your breath fogs before your face like a silent sigh. The cold does not rage or howl. No, it sits, it lingers, it keeps company. And in the stillness of night, it sits down beside you like an old acquaintance, and you learn again how much space absence can take up. You feel it first, in the soles of your feet. They burn a little, not from heat, but from the blood's slow protest, as it tries to move through narrow places. The warmth from the earlier fire no longer reaches this far. The floor below is cold as stone, even if it's packed dirt or wood. You can feel the memory of frost rising up through your mattress, through the straw, through every layer of woven thread between your skin and the world. Then it crawls up, carefully, reverently. The cold doesn't rush, it knows how to wait. Strokes your ankles like a careful cat, seeps into your knees, nestles into the hollow behind your back. You tug the blanket closer, closer still, bunching the fabric over your nose, wrapping yourself in your own breath, but still it finds you. You sleep in layers, but you are never entirely warm. It's not in the heart of winter, not in a medieval night. You have learned the trick of sleeping close, if another body shares your bed. You learn how to align like puzzle pieces backs together, knees tucked, breath warming the nape of a neck or the cradle of a shoulder. But even alone, you create shapes of warmth, knees bent, hands curled into fists, chin tucked, shoulders drawn inward. You make yourself small, you make yourself still, make yourself a fortress of one. The cold makes you listen differently. You become aware of the small creaks of the timbers, the way they shift in their old bones. You hear the frost forming on the window's edge, whispering with the silence of 1,000 tiny needles. You feel the shape of the dark. It is not empty. It is full of cold, of breath, of time stretching slowly from now until morning. Some people say the cold can steal your soul. If your feet go to sleep, it means death is passing by them. But if you wake in the dark, unable to move, it's not a dream, it's something else. Something with long fingers and breath like snow. Others say that the cold is cleansing, that it drives away the night things. It's that only the living feel the bite of frost, and so it's proof that you are still here, still inside your skin, still among the breathing. You think about the people outside the house. It's the ones with no fire at all. It's the beggars and travelers. The monks sleeping on stone floors in unheated cloisters. The shepherds curled beneath the stars with only their sheep for warmth. You are lucky, you remind yourself. Lucky to have this mattress. Lucky for the threadbare wool. Lucky for the quiet drip of melted wax beside you. It's still you shiver. Even luck cannot warm you entirely. There is something holy in the cold, though. Something humbling. You lie awake, lips dry, skin chilled, and you feel smaller in the best way. The vastness of the night accepts you. The air itself feels ancient, like it remembers a time before fire, before houses, before beds. You belong to something older than comfort, older than warmth. And in that awareness, sometimes there is peace. A deep and peculiar peace. It's the kind that doesn't come from being cozy, but from being still. It's from letting the cold be part of your sleep, not your enemy, but your companion. You lie there, and you know you are not separate from the world. You are part of it. Your breath rises into the rafters. Your heartbeat keeps time with the dripping of the thaw. Your dreams drift like frost on a window pane, delicate and strange and gone by morning. You pull the blanket up one more inch. You turn onto your side. You listen to the cold sitting beside you, as it always does, not cruelly, not kindly, but simply present. Watching you, it's waiting, keeping you company until the first bird dares to sing. You never really thought of a pillow as something soft, not in the way that clouds are soft, or wool just sheared from the sheep, or cakes made with more eggs than flour. A pillow in your world is not a plush thing. It is not made of goose feathers unless you are very lucky or very wealthy, or both. For you, the pillow is often a sack, a shape, a form filled with whatever can be spared: hay, rags, straw, sometimes even chaff or bundled herbs. If it's a festive season and the house smells sweet, you press your cheek against it anyway, because it's what you have. And though the cloth might scratch and the stuffing might shift and bunch beneath the weight of your head, it is familiar. It holds your shape over time. The longer you sleep on it, the more it remembers you. The dip where your head settles, the faint trace of oil from your skin, the way you turn to the left, then to the right, then back again when you can't find the rhythm of rest. Sometimes it's not even a pillow at all. Sometimes it's just a folded cloak, or a bundle of clothes, or your own arm tucked beneath your head like a reluctant cushion. But still, you call it a pillow. You need the word. You need the idea of something soft at the end of a hard day. It's not just the comfort, it's the ritual. Laying your head down marks the end. It is the border between toil and dreaming, between what happened and what might happen. And even if the pillow scratches, even if a bit of straw pokes through the corner and tickles your jaw, you press your cheek to it as though it were the finest linen, because it is the best your night can offer. You remember when it was new, or rather when it was new to you? It smelled of flax and dust, and the ticking fabric was stiff, unforgiving. But now it's softened, like old things do, under years of sweat and stories and quiet. You've bled on it, cried on it, laughed into it when you were trying to stay quiet in the dark. You've whispered prayers into it, maybe curses too. But it holds your life in the shape of a rectangle beneath your head. Sometimes you dream of down, of thick feather pillows so plump they cradle the skull like a baby in arms. You've seen them in manor houses, perhaps, or heard about them in tales. The ones embroidered and edged with lace, kept white with chalk and sun-drying. But you wonder if they're truly better, or if softness just becomes ordinary in time, if even the finest pillow flattens under the weight of longing and repetition. Your squeaks sometimes. It's a straw squeal, almost like a tiny breath. Ouch. You turn your head, and the rustling rises beneath your ear like a mouse rustling through leaves. And sometimes it's not unpleasant. It's a quiet sound. A reminder that this is not a world made of silence. Even your rest carries a voice. Even your bed listens. Some nights the pillow feels warm before it should. Your own breath has turned it damp at the edge. You flip it, hoping the underside is still cool, still untouched by the heat of your head. And you lie there, your cheek against the chill, eyes closing. It's not comfort you chase. It's the idea of relief. The fleeting joy of cool cloth, of small mercies. There's a trick to it, too. How to fold it just so. How to push the stuffing back into place when it gathers in lumps and hollows. You've learned to tuck the corners under, to punch it into submission, to smooth it with a practiced palm. There's a domestic kind of sorcery to making an uncomfortable thing slightly less so. When you travel, the pillow's the one thing you miss, not because it is wonderful, but because it is yours, because it knows your head. You can't bring it with you, not always. It's too bulky, too cumbersome. But you miss it nonetheless. You miss the feel of it under your temple, the weight of your dreams sinking into its battered form. The cold makes it harder. The cloth goes stiff. The straw feels sharper. And if it's damp even, just a little it's like sleeping with your head on a bag of bones. You try to fluff it, shake it out near the fire, but it holds its chill longer than your skin can bear. Still, you use it. You always use even when it feels like stone. But every so often there's a surprise. The herbs someone tucked inside long ago have released a ghost of their scent. Lavender, maybe, or chamomile, a whisper of summer, dried and folded into your sleep. The ticking cloth, patched and repatched, feels soft against your jaw in a way that makes you forget the straw inside. Or you wake and realize you don't remember the pillow at all, that it must have cradled you well enough, gently enough, to let you pass into dreaming without protest. And in those moments, you almost love it. Because this is not a time of abundance, not a world where comfort is a given. But still, you find it where you can, in a warm spoonful of porridge, in a fire that doesn't smoke too much, in a pillow that, for one night, doesn't fight your sleep. You lie still, one arm draped over your chest, the other curled beneath your cheek, and you listen to the creak of the house, the flicker of the last candle, the slow settling of the straw. And your pillow holds your head not perfectly, not softly, but enough to let the darkness take you. Enough to remind you that sometimes you don't need softness. You only need stillness, and anything beneath your dreaming skull. You wake to a sound that is not your own. Not the wind scratching its cold fingers along the shutters, not the creak of beams settling in their ancient positions. No, it is a cough. Small, hoarse, and wet. Not loud enough to startle the house, but sharp enough to disturb the fragile edge of sleep you were clinging to. The room is still dim, just the palest silver of a moon dying behind clouds, leaking in through a crack above the window. You shift slightly on the bench, the wool blanket tangled about your legs. Your back still held upright by the bundle of rushes behind you. You're propped, as always, in a posture halfway between sitting and sleep, with your head lolling to one side and your neck aching from too many nights this way. It is not comfort you seek, but safety. It is not dreams you chase, but protection. The cough comes again. This time, it is followed by a wet breath and the faint shuffle of someone adjusting themselves under their bedding, likely one of the children. Perhaps the youngest, the one who seems never too warm, no matter how many skins he's buried under. He coughs more and more these days. Always at night. Always when the fire has gone cold and the drafts return like uninvited guests from the edges of the thatched roof. You don't speak. There is nothing to say. Everyone hears it. Everyone knows. In the darkness, sleep is fragile. Dreams, when they do come, are strange and twisted, too near to waking to be sweet. And yet, you try to find your way back to them. Shift your weight again, adjusting the way your knees are bent, the way your spine curves against the pressed bundle of straw behind you. Upright sleeping is not restful, but it is known. It is what you do to ward off the weight that lies in the chest when you lie flat. The old people say, death pulls hardest when you're lying down. So you sleep sitting up, half defiant, half hopeful, half afraid. Your breath comes easier this way, or at least you think so. The priest said it once. Flat backs invite the demon. A sleeping soul to deepen dream, lying prone, was like a door left ajar. The night air was heavy with visitations. The child coughs again, and now the mother stirs. Her footsteps are soft, almost imagined. The shift of her skirt is gentler than the wind, a whisper, then a low hush. She presses her hand to his forehead, a soundless check for fever. You can hear her own breath now, the quick inhale of fear she tries to smother. But it leaks out all the same. It's like everything in the night. You'll remember the last time a cough like that passed through the village. First the children, then the old ones. Then the strong. Each night filled with whispers and the sound of fire being stirred desperately at strange hours. And the priest walking from house to house with ashes in a pouch, muttering things no one wanted to hear aloud. You remember the look on your neighbor's face, the one who buried his youngest without ever finding the words to name what had taken her. Some things didn't need names. They were felt, smelled, feared. Another cough. Another rustle. You press your head back. Close your eyes. The air is dry, but not cold anymore. Your breath forms no cloud in front of your lips. Still something in your bones tells you the damp is coming back. The nights have been warmer, but somehow that makes the house feel more alive, like the dampness moves through it, searching for something soft to settle in. And always you remember the warnings. That to lie flat is to surrender. That the dead are laid out that way, never the living. That upright sleep keeps the breath moving, keeps the heart higher, closer to heaven. The sick lie down, as the well do not. You try to slow your breathing, to will yourself into sleep again. You imagine walking the fields, the frost crackling under your boots, the geese shifting in the marsh. You picture your hands in the bread dough, the soft warmth of the yeast rising in the dim hearthlight. These things calm you, ground you. But then, in the silence, another cough, and not from the child this time, from another corner. Different in tone. Now you know that whatever it is, it's moving. Not just in one set of lungs, but several. like a mist seeping through gaps in the door, threading its way into chests and throats and bellies. Still, no one speaks. The silence remains respectful, reverent. Fear does not like to be acknowledged aloud. Not at this hour. Not when the walls seem thin and the stars above seem closer than the thatch above your head. Eventually, the sounds settle. The coughing slows. The breathing evens out again, if only briefly, and your eyes grow heavy, though your body never truly relaxes. You drift, like a boat barely tied to shore, always ready to wake again at the slightest sound. Sleep is not a haven, it is a wager. The upright posture aches, your shoulders burn, but you endure, because sleep is a ritual, and you've learned not to question rituals. They are what keep you safer, at least, what allow you to believe you are safe, as best you can. Upright, alert, half here, half there. And when the cough returns, because it always does, you open your eyes. It's not startled, not panicked, but simply ... resigned. It is just the night after all. The night and the endless, breathless waiting that comes with it. You shift slightly in your upright nest of linen and wool, your shoulders aching faintly beneath the weight of the day and the weight of the night alike. Your hands rest upon your belly, fingers curled like the fronds of a sleeping fern, and your head dips forward again, chin brushing the rise of your chest. The fire has long since gone out, but you no longer feel its absence. The cold is constant now, part of the stillness, part of the way time passes in these deep hours when the wind has forgotten how to howl and only the house creaks in memory of the day. You are not entirely asleep, not entirely awake either. You exist in that soft, shifting space between, where thought and dream braid together in silence. This is the hour for dreams, not the pretty, fanciful kind, but the slow, thick-blooded dreams that drift into you like smoke from an unseen fire. This is not entertainment. This is communication. This is what the soul does when the body sits still. In your village, dreams are not whispers from your own mind. They are signs, directions, omens. You learned that young. Everyone did. Your grandmother used to speak of her dreams with the gravity of a sermon. If I dream of a black hound, she would say, someone will die before the week is out. And they usually did. Not always someone you knew, but always someone close enough to make your skin tighten. You breathe shallowly, the smell of the room pressed into your nostrils earth. Wool, a trace of last night's garlic and broth, smoke from the fire that was but your thoughts are far from your little cottage. You are riding the current of dream, and in the dream you are walking barefoot across a muddy field, lit only by moonlight. Your toes sink into the cold, wet soil with every step. Something is calling you softly, not with words, but with the insistence of a forgotten task. You do not know where you are going, but you must go. When you wake, if this counts as waking, you will remember the dream in fragments. A hill, a voice, the cry of a baby, a door that would not open. You will try to stitch it back together, piecing meaning from the mist. Maybe it means someone is carrying a burden they cannot put down. Maybe it means you will soon be asked to help, though you may not want to. Maybe it means nothing at all, but that is never quite possible in your world. Dreams always mean something. It is your task to uncover what. There are stories, always stories of dreams that change the course of lives. A farmer who saw a great flood in his sleep and moved his animals to higher ground just in time. A baker who dreamt of a pale boy with blood at his mouth, and whose neighbor's child fell ill the next day. And darker stories, too. Dreams of devils perched at the end of the bed. Dreams that left bruises. Dreams that took pieces of people and never gave them back. You've heard the whispers that certain herbs can drive the bad dreams away. Mugwort tied beneath the pillow. Chamomile boiled into a tea. A charm sewn into the mattress, 7 knots, 7 prayers, 7 nights without nightmares. But you've also heard that dreams denied return stronger, and that the worst thing one can do is ignore them. To sleep without dreams is to walk blind through a world full of signs. To lie flat like the dead and rise with no memory of the soul's travels is considered dangerous by many. So you do not lie flat. Not just because of fear or tradition or aches in the bones, but because the space between waking and sleep is your only compass. Because in this age of flickering candles and uncertain futures, dreams are sometimes the only maps you have. When morning comes, You will speak of your dream to the old woman who tends the shrine near the well. She nod, her eyes half closed, and offer no interpretation, just questions. Was the baby yours? Was the door wood or iron? Did you feel joy or dread? And you'll answer as best you can, but she'll only shake her head and murmur, not everything is meant to be known at once. That's the thing about dream knowledge. It arrives on its own schedule. Sometimes it's a truth that unfolds over weeks. Sometimes it's only understood when it's already too late. You remember hearing once that kings paid good coin for the dreams of wise men? That monks wrote their visions on parchment and sealed them away in stone halls? That there were people who could walk into sleep like stepping into a garden, plucking meaning like herbs from the soil? But here, in your world, there are no scholars or scribes. There is only the night, and your half-waking mind, and the hope that your dreams are not warnings but guides. And now, you are nodding again. The candle you left burning has long gone dark. You are wrapped in your shawl, knees pulled up, spine curved like a question. You drift, you return, you drift again. The hours pass like water through cracked stone. The dog stirs in the corner. An ember shifts in the hearth. Somewhere, a cock crows too early, mistaking silence for dawn. And still you sit, still you sleep, still you dream upright, as you were taught, as you were told. As all your people do, waiting for the next dream to open its door and invite you through, and as your chin dips once more toward your chest, you wonder, just before sleep takes you again, if dreams are the road between this life and another, then perhaps sitting up is not about fear at all. Perhaps it is about readiness, about watching for the messenger in the night, about never letting yourself lie so flat that you forget which direction your soul should travel. You are still half dreaming when the fire in the hearth gives its final sigh, collapsing inward in a soft rustle of ash. The coals have dimmed to a sleepy glow, no longer warm enough to heat the room, but still alive enough to cast a faint, flickering blush across the low ceiling. Your body is curled slightly to the side, knees drawn up, chin tucked down like a child still in the womb of night. You have not truly slept, and yet you have not truly stayed awake. That strange, drowsy place between the first sleep and the second has passed over you like a low mist, and now at last, the new day is stirring outside the walls. The house is utterly quiet, not silent, never truly silent, but filled with the hushed murmur of slumbering things. A breeze moves gently beneath the thatch, barely enough to lift a strand of your hair. Somewhere in the rafters a bird gives a brief shuffle, then settles again. And beneath all this, beneath the wood and wind and woven linens, is the slow, steady rhythm of breath. Yours and theirs, and the old house itself. You sit upright, not because you must, but because your body remembers the rule of it. For how many generations now have your kin risen like this? Spine bowed, shoulders draped in wool, feet gingerly meeting the earth. It feels like instinct more than choice. You do not lie flat. You do not stretch long like the dead. You rise into the world slowly, humbly, like smoke curling from a chimney or mist rising from dew-wet fields. The room is still painted in shadow, but beyond the shutters, light is testing the edges of the world. The first cock has crowed. It is not a sharp cry, but a scratchy, half-hearted thing, as though even he is not quite ready to greet the dawn. The chickens rustle in their straw, and the dog, your old companion, curled by the door, raises his head, blinks, and thumps his tail once against the wood before settling again. You lean forward and touch your feet to the floor, feeling the cold kiss of stone. It wakes you more fully than the breeze, more gently than any voice. You close your eyes and breathe in. The room smells like sleep and soot, wool and winter breath. A soft, acrid trace of last night's lamp oil lingers in the air. There is a hush in this moment, a sacred quiet that belongs to the last few seconds before the first task of the day takes hold of your hands and leads you away from yourself. Others will wake soon. There will be the sound of shifting straw, the creak of joints long unused, the muttered prayers of the elderly who cross themselves even before their eyes are fully open. But for now, you are alone in this gentle, upright stillness, and it is enough. You reach for your overcloak and draw it around your shoulders, holding it close against your chest. The cloth is rough, but it smells of hearth smoke and hay, and that is comforting. With your other hand, you touch the wooden frame of the bed, smooth from years of use, worn by countless hands before yours. Trace the grain with your fingers, a small ritual, a gesture of grounding, of remembering who you are. For a moment, you stay there, not rising, not moving, simply being. You let your thoughts drift past the chores that wait, past the bread that must be baked, and the water that must be drawn, past even the weight of the day to come. Instead, you think of the strange safety that night brings, and how the body, when allowed to rest in fragments, does not feel cheated. In fact, there is a secret pleasure in this divided slumber, this rhythm of waking and sleeping and waking again. It is old, it is familiar, belongs to the world before clocks and alarms, to the time when people slept as the earth sleeps in, shifts, in shadows, in cycles guided by stars. You stand slowly, the joints in your knees whispering their complaint. Your body feels heavy but not sore. It is the weight of warmth leaving you, the final shiver of night retreating from your limbs. You step carefully, mindful of creaking boards and the quiet of those still in their second sleep. The door gives slightly beneath your hand, and cold air brushes against your cheek like a breath from the past. Outside, the sky is beginning to color. It's not with the full drama of sunrise, but with the gentle gray that comes before it. The in-between hour, soft and strange. The grass is damp. The stones glisten. Your breath makes a pale cloud in the air, and your footsteps are quiet as you move away from the door, away from the bed, and toward the rhythm of another day. You pause one last time and glance back at the little room. It is still dim. The blanket lies folded where you left it. The pillow bears the faint impression of your head. And in the air thin as cobweb, tender as sleep itself, lingers the shape of your dreams. And so, in this final moment of upright stillness, you say goodbye to the night that held you not tightly, not completely, but just enough. You give thanks for the warmth, the dreams, the strange comfort of not lying flat. You walk forward, carrying the echo of medieval sleep with you, into the light, into the breath of a waking world.